Hi folks, this is Maria, and I'm just going to introduce you a little bit to diagrams.net. So diagrams.net, if you haven't used it before, is a great way to make flowcharts. We're going to do it for chemistry because it's really helpful just in terms of sharing and putting it into formats that are really easy for you to move between and make edits and all that sort of stuff. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to click Start. Now, I will tell you, because I have used this particular program a lot, there's usually a lot of permissions that need to happen. But in this particular case, I don't have to do any of that. So it's only because I've used it a bunch before. Do give it permissions to the different things that it asks to. I have mine linked to my Google Drive so that it just kind of ends up creating it right in there. I'm going to click on Create New Diagram. And then I'm going to click on Blank Diagram. It's easier than starting from one of the templates for us. For the root folder, that just means it's one of the folders that's in your Google Drive somewhere. If you need to pick the folder, go for it. That's not a huge deal. You can also change it later, though, just so you know. I'm going to click Yes. And then I create a new thing. The first thing that I want to do before I do anything else is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share this. So I went to File, I went to Share. I'm going to share with Britt. I'm going to share with Becky. I want to make sure they have editor access because assuming they're in my group with me. So I go ahead, I click Send. There's that. The next thing that it's helpful to do is rename it so that it's a name that you will be able to find in your Google Drive. So if I call this my first flowchart, I'll rename it. And then great. Here's how you get started. There's all these different shapes over here. You essentially click on a shape that you want. You double click in the middle of the box, and then you type whatever you need to type. That's your instructions. So this is the first step. I'm using this is the first step as just really like generic terms when going through. You don't need to tell me that it's the first step though, if it's the first box. I just want to emphasize that. All right, I'm going to move this to the top of the page. It's always good to create a lot of space for yourself because technically you have this page to go through. Ideally, you want to try and keep flowcharts to one page long. We'll talk more about that later. Sometimes it's not possible, and that's okay. All right, I've just picked a different shape. The different shapes don't mean anything. And I just want to show you how to connect shapes. So if you put your mouse over the box, you'll see there's lots of little blue X's. And when you put your mouse over one of those blue X's, you get a little green dot. So if you click on that and then you hold it, you can connect it to another shape at any of the little blue hatches that you see here. So the nice thing about this is that let's say it turns out later I need to kind of rearrange my flowchart a little bit more. These are already connected. So then when I rearrange my flowchart, I'm like, oh, great. Like, it's helpful when going through. That's one of the really nice things about this. Let's say I have a third step. I'm going to do the same thing. And then let's say that I need to have the first step, second step, and third step. I need to have them repeat a few times. The easiest way to do that is I'm going to click here, and then I'm going to connect it here. What this is saying is that once I finish the first step, the second step, and the third step, I'm going to go through and do this again. But if I don't give more context, technically what I should be doing is it endlessly. And we don't want that. So let's say that I want to have it so that I am repeating a step for a total of 3 times. So here's what I'm going to say then. I'm going to say repeat times 2, so twice, for a total of 3 times. So what that's saying is I go through 1, 2, 3, I follow this arrow back up. I'm repeating it again. 1, 2, 3. I'm repeating it again. 1, 2, 3. And so I have done it 3 times when going through. All right. That's the basics of how you'll put together flowcharts. When just in terms of like how to use this program, feel free to ask your teacher though. We've all used this program a bunch. So the last thing that you'll need to do is be able to export it, and you'll have to export it as usually a PDF to turn into Canvas. And then you also, it's really helpful to export it as a PNG or JPEG file so that you can put it into a Google Doc. When you click export as when going through, there's a bunch of these different things. You just say, yes, sure, on all that stuff. You'll click export. This is one where I find it easier to actually download it to my device. So I would click that, and then it does this, and then I downloaded my flowchart for my use of turning it into Canvas or whatever's easiest when going through. All right, so with that being said, those are the basics. Feel free to ask your teacher any questions, but that should help you and your partner work on your flowchart.